Hey, welcome to Just Salvos this week. Did you know that coming up very soon, it's Abolitionist Sunday all across Australia, which is a great World Vision initiative, which is heavily supported and encouraged by the Salvation Army. You may have seen some information in a recent war cry, which has got some very, very interesting facts. Facts I'm about to pitch to our guest today. Our guest is from World Vision. He's an amazing man. He's a regular Just Salvos contributor. His name is Steve Cook. Hello, Steve.
G'day, Chris. How are you going?
Let me hit you up with this. I'm good, by the way.
That's good.
Thanks for asking. According to the United Nations, $31.6 billion of profit is extracted from 12.3 million people in forced labour every year. Approximately 2 million of these people are victims of human trafficking, and 80% of these are women and children. Now, most people would understand that slavery was abolished back in the 1700s. Good old Wilberforce took care of that. Why are we still reading that it's a $31.6 billion industry?
Yeah, it is a huge industry. Human trafficking, slavery, exploitation. This is something that has been under the surface of our society for ever since Wilberforce and his team of abolitionists did that work 200 years ago. They did fantastic work, amazing work to make slavery illegal. They changed the construct of their society about what way people kind of valued people 200 years ago. They said that, you know, this is not okay for us to profit off the backs of slaves all the time and have that as part of our business. So they did amazing things to change their society, but it didn't mean that slavery disappeared completely. It meant that those who were looking to profit off the exploitation of others had to shift their business, because it's no longer on the surface of our society, it's under the surface, a little bit more hidden, a little bit more clandestine. It's in the places where we're not always looking and expecting.
Yeah. But even then, I mean, we read that to abolish at least legal slavery was effectively what would be considered in today's terms a $14 trillion hit to the economy. So this was a big thing that they went through, and yet still under the surface there's still huge money to be made. What sort of ways are we seeing slavery in place today?
Slavery is popping up all around the world. Human trafficking is an industry that is it's insidious in the way that it creeps throughout our society, and every country, every industry, nothing's immune. The way that it comes about is when there are people who are vulnerable to exploitation, who make decisions and choices to try and better their circumstances, and those decisions can be deceived, and those decisions can be taken advantage of. When people are looking to improve their circumstances, maybe because they're living in poverty, living with existing social exploitation, social outcasts or something like that, and they try and make a change. They can often put their trust in someone who shouldn't be trusted, and they move somewhere where they shouldn't have gone. They take a calculated risk, a life choice, which ends them up in trafficking or slavery. And so this could happen in manufacturing, this could happen in agriculture, it happens in the adult sex industry, a whole bunch of different places. In
fact, we've seen quite a focus recently, even here in Melbourne, on sex trafficking, particularly with regard to international students.
That's right. There's this there's industry like the adult sex industry, which is a very profitable industry, and so there's opportunities when there's profits to be made that someone can be exploited into that industry. And similarly, though, it's pleasing to see that the Australian government here is starting to focus out broader than the sex industry as well, and look at other places like agriculture, like mining, and see that, wow, there's actually potential for exploitation here as well. We need to actually shed some light in those areas and at least look, are people there of their own free will, or is there trafficking happening in those industries as well?
Yep. Now, back in the days of Wilberforce, I think a message that kept coming through in that time was that to abolish slavery wasn't as easy as just ticking a box or maybe joining a campaign, but this was going to be something that was big and painful, as we said, a huge hit to the economy, a change of the way of life for an economy. Do you think that same thing is true today? For us to abolish slavery, is it going to take some kind of change in the way we think?
I absolutely think that's the case. This is a big fight that Wilberforce was on, which is why it took so long. It was a long campaign. It wasn't just a simple thing, one piece of legislation, there we go, move on. Yeah. It was a big campaign, went for a long time. Similarly today, exploitation, trafficking, slavery can be so ingrained in the things that we do. It is going to take a change in the way that we think about our purchases, the way we do businesses, the supply chains that businesses have to get their products to Australia. they have to think all through those different steps and figure out, well, where is there opportunity for exploitation and vulnerability here, and how do we stop that? It will change the way that we make purchases, because it means that instead of just looking for a bargain, we actually have to think about, well, how can I make a purchasing choice, which will ensure that people at the other end of this supply chain are protected.
So it's really about a conversation. Now, World Vision, who are driving this Abolitionist Sunday, have put out a little video.
That's
which
right.
We're going to have a look at now. What are we about to look at?
So this is a bit of a promotion, but a motivational clip for Abolitionist Sunday. This is about us trying to explain that being an abolitionist is not something that you have to, you don't have to do a university degree to be an abolitionist. This is about making choices in our everyday lives that will actually help our world reflect better what God would want for this world, which is a full life for all people, and then figure out how we can help tell other people about that too.
Sometimes the issues in our world can be so huge that you don't know where to begin.
The numbers and the injustice sometimes seem to be so overwhelming.
27 million people enslaved. What do you do with a number like that?
When you think that God has made every single one of us in His image, those made for His glory, to worship Him are abused and enslaved just for profit.
Human beings reduced to commodities, valued by a dollar figure rather than their inherent value as children of God.
The chocolate that I was eating and the coffee that I was drinking, that could have been made by a slave, or it somehow could have been produced through slavery. That's an awful thought.
How can anyone stand by while this kind of injustice, this exploitation exists under the surface of our society?
People that are loved by God, made in His image, made for His glory, abused because they can make a profit for someone else.
Exploitation is not just about bad people taking advantage of good people. It's an industry, and we're all a part of it, whether we realise it or not.
You see, it's in the everyday stuff. It's our clothes, our chocolate, our coffee. How often do we stop and ask, who is at the end of these supply chains? How can we value those people through the choices we make every day?
The problem is so huge and it's everywhere.
And I'm just one person. And sometimes I just think, what am I going to do about it? How can I make any difference at all?
We're just one church. How can we shed light on this and show up the injustice? How can we help people see what an insidious problem this is and expose exploitation in this global society?
We can learn from people like William Wilberforce, a Christian abolitionist of 200 years ago, whose faith compelled them to take action against the injustice that they saw in their society. They knew that people loved by God were exploited. They were being treated as products, as commodities. They even stopped using sugar in their tea because it was produced using slave labour. I mean, what if we could take a stand like that today?
What if I said, unless you can tell me no exploited labour was used in the production of this product, I'm not going to buy it?
What's the church? A worshiping community, disciples of Jesus, reclaimed the abolitionist spirit and helped our neighborhoods and our nation to stop slavery today.
What if we asked the nation's leaders to make sure all government supply chains didn't have exploited labour? What if we said to our nation's business leaders, nothing in your supply chain should have the taint of child and exploited labour?
As a disciple of Jesus, I have this joy of living closer in step with God's plan for this world. And that includes the joyful inconvenience of changing how I make my choices day by day so that others can live a more full life.
By asking the questions of the products I buy, I can actually change the way society values people.
So as a disciple, it's pretty simple. I must be an abolitionist. I must invite other Christian disciples to be abolitionists. Why? The message of the gospel is freedom.
I'm a disciple of Jesus, and so I want my everyday choices to be in step with God.
I'm a disciple, so I'm an abolitionist.
I'm a disciple, so I'm an abolitionist.
I'm a disciple, so I must be an abolitionist.
Certainly challenging. A great little tagline there, Steve. I'm a disciple and therefore I'm an abolitionist. For you, where's the connection between being a follower of Jesus and being someone who seeks to abolish slavery with their life?
Sure, that's a really, really good question. For me, being a disciple of Jesus means that I am trying to make decisions and changes in my own life which would make my life and the world around me look more like what God would want for his world, as you saw in that clip. And that's about the different choices that I can make each day, which will help bring a fullness of life to all people. And the way that our products and our purchasing patterns are so interwound with people across the seas, people in other countries, people we haven't met, we can actually have the power to kind of be abolitionists here in Australia, but have impact across the world.
Okay, now how do we do it? Let's get down to some details now. We've got this big campaign coming up, which is great, and we'll be looking at more of that as part of that. But how do I actually make changes in my life to be an abolitionist? We know of some stuff. We know of fair trade. We know to look out for the logo on our coffee and our chocolate, but surely there's more to it than that.
Well, part of the big thing about a big change in society like this is that there's individuals that know about those kinds of things. We know about fair trade and Rainforest Alliance and these small steps we can take, but do other people know about it? Is it just a secret that we've got? Have we told our neighbours? Have we told our friends? Have we told our church community? When William Wilberforce was fighting slavery 200 years ago, they rode on horseback around the country to get people involved in their movement, to help convince people to understand what this is about. We have to do that again today. We can buy fair trade tea and coffee, but is our neighbour, is someone else. So we need to be telling people. We need to become advocates for the poor in our community here and help them understand what it means to be an abolitionist as well, and how these little steps that we make, these little choices, build up into something really big, something much, much bigger. And I think that's what discipleship is all about as well. When we give something of ourselves to the mission of God, God actually is in that, and he builds that to something much bigger than we could otherwise do on our own. That's the exciting thing about kind of social change and bringing about these kinds of things on behalf of the gospel.
You seem very excited. I'm catching your excitement. It's contagious excitement. Thanks, Steve. Is there one more thing? If there's one thing you wanted us to take from today or from the Abolitionist Sunday message, what is it?
Sure. So Abolitionist Sunday is on November 20 this year. We're looking for churches and Christians in particular, but everyone is welcome to be involved. But this is really trying to get churches and Christians to take it as an opportunity to consolidate what they know about trafficking and slavery and exploitation, consolidate what they know about fair trade and buying ethically, and get more people involved. Take it as an opportunity to pull more people into this movement and help them understand that this is something that we can achieve, that William Wilberforce was on a big campaign to abolish slavery. Today we're on a big campaign again, and we need more and more people involved and more people to see themselves as abolitionists.
Let's do it. Thanks, Steve. You've been amazing and encouraging and inspiring all at once yet again. It's good to have you back.
It's good to be here. Thank
There's
you.
heaps more information on the website. We've got some information now for the Abolitionist Sunday website. There's also some information packs that you can get. If you're a Salvation Army person, please talk to your Corps officer and get your Corps involved. There have already been quite a few Corps have joined up to Abolitionist Sunday, so please register your interest and actually take part. Share it with your congregation, share it with your neighbours, share it with your friends. For all this information and more, you can of course go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/JustSalvos, or our website, www.justsalvos.com. Steve Cook, as I said, it's been great to have you back. Surely we'll have you back again.
Thanks, Chris.
Otherwise, we'll catch you next week.